So this video is about underpainting, and I have a specific technique that I'm demonstrating here that I would like you guys to use for this semester, and the first project is just practicing that. Now, an underpainting is very simply the part of the painting where you just resolve your drawing problems. We're not concerned about color in this part of the painting. Um, for this part of the picture, you can see the demonstration is concerned about big shapes and placement, and that's a good place to start. Eventually, it'll tighten up, but your main concerns here are the accuracy of the drawing, and just for later, once you've got the drawing information in, when you go to color, you don't have to think about it anymore. And there's my setup that just came on the screen. So you can see my painting on the table, my palette, and the still life in the box with the lighting. And lighting is something that we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to setting up your own still lifes and trying to figure out how to have setups that you actually want to work from wherever you happen to be. Since we're online this semester, you guys are in charge of setting up your own still lifes. One of the main focuses of my classes and myself as a teacher is trying to set up a situation in the classroom where you guys have the best possible learning experience that I can make for you. And the classroom allows me to do that, but that's one of the things I can't do this semester, and it's going to be a frustration. But anyway, back to the topic of underpainting. So we're using raw umber, that's the color. And the reason we use raw umber is because it has a really big value range. So you guys remember from drawing, value is how light or dark a color is, or how light or dark something is. Raw umber has a really wide range of value. And so the idea here is to take what you guys already know about drawing, tie it into oil painting with something you're familiar with. So we're basically sort of acting like the raw umber is charcoal and just trying to build the image. And as you watch the demo kind of unfold, you'll see it's pretty messy and the brushes make big, sort of cumbersome marks. But as we go, it'll tighten up just the way when you're drawing with charcoal, where you make a mess and then clean it up. So another thing about raw umber is that it dries very quickly. So throughout the video, this took me a couple of hours to make. The video is only 15 minutes or so. But you'll actually see the raw umber on the left drying on my palette. So that's something to look for at the end. But the fact that it dries so quickly is an advantage for you guys, in that you can work on it, and then a few hours later or overnight or whatever, you come back to it the next time, and it's dry, and you can just start doing color on top of it. For the purposes of the first week, the paintings I have you guys making are just the underpainting itself. We're not going to be painting over this, even though when I do the first color demo, it may actually be over this painting, but that's just so I don't have to make another one. The whole point of putting you guys to work here is for you to get the practice. So I think you guys are going to make like a practice painting, underpainting, and then you'll make a real one that I'll give you a grade on. But raw umber, you guys will find you're going to need a lot of it. So don't be surprised if your original tube kind of runs out. So one of the questions I get a lot is how useful is this technique? Like, does anyone else use it? Um, and the answer is, yeah, there's quite a few um, artists from art history that use this technique. It's a historical technique. Um, the thing that's good about it, and we'll get to the artists that use it in a second, but what's good about it is that it's super forgiving and it's fast. What'll happen eventually is you guys will just be able to knock these underpaintings out in one sitting and have it be just as accurate as you want. And that's a huge advantage because when you go to do color, if your drawing is already resolved, it frees you up to only have to worry about color. And it just makes your life so much easier. So you guys will get really good at this technique very quickly. Um, but like for instance, when I was in college, all the painting classes I took were in acrylic. And when I got to grad school, we were using oils, and I had very little experience with oil. Um, but the first thing we did was, well, everyone else in the class was reviewing this technique when it was new to me. But all I could think about while I was learning this was how much potential it had. I could see the freedom and I could see the potential, and it really just expanded what I could imagine painting was capable of. So I'm hoping that you guys have a similar experience with it. There's an artist named Mark Tansey, and I'll put up a picture of one of his paintings as we go. He's a good one to look up if you're interested. Mark Tansey is a contemporary artist. He's been around, I think, since the 70s, but he's still going. And his paintings are entirely made using this technique. And the painting that I have on the screen is just an awesome conceptual painting where the white part was actually painted and then reduced, lifted with a cloth. And then the rest of it, and you can see that it's Michelangelo's Last Judgment, but the guy is painting over it. But he isn't really painting over it. He's actually painting nothing over it because it isn't paint. It's been removed. It's very heady, interesting stuff there. But he's a good example of a contemporary artist who uses this technique entirely. The next one I'll put up is Rubens. And Rubens is doing the same thing we're doing, except he's adding white. And we're not adding white because I want you guys to keep the underpainting as lean as possible. And that's something we'll talk about later, but it has to do with how much oil is in the paint. White paint tends to be super oily, and you really don't want it in your underpainting. You want it in your overpainting. But Rubens is awesome, and he's someone that you can look at forever and always continue to learn things. But now, one thing I want to point out is that this is not the only underpainting technique there is. This next one by Dominique Ang, the French sort of academic painter, he's doing something called a grisaille, which is an underpainting in black and white. And that's another traditional technique. Sometimes I do that with painting too, but it's just a different way to do it. And then the last one is by Jan van Eyck. And when I think about the technique that you guys are doing, this one, and the technique that we're seeing on the screen with Van Eyck, it's kind of like the underpainting you guys are doing is like the Italian underpainting technique, and Van Eyck is doing the Dutch version. The Dutch came up with oil painting first, the way we think of it now, and they came up with this super elaborate underpainting technique that had to do with rabbit skin glue and ink and egg tempera and all these layers and all these crazy steps. And it's awesome and really fun to paint that way. But the Italians went up to the Netherlands and Flanders, which is now Belgium. and learned to paint from the Dutch. But when they got home, they were like, we could do a lot of things here that um, they don't need to be as technical as they're doing them in the Netherlands. We can do them our way. And so one of the things they did was come up with an underpainting that could resolve the drawing problems but didn't have all the steps. And that's what you have with this technique here. And one of the things I neglected to talk about at the beginning was what I'm doing in the painting in terms of technique. So in the painting, I tried to make sure that while I was doing it, I was pulling out all the basic techniques that you guys are going to be using. But basically, I took the paint with a big brush and I blocked in all the places where I knew there were going to be darks. Where I knew there were going to be lights, like the table, I just left it blank because I knew I was never going to paint there anyway. It doesn't make any sense to me to put the paint on just to wipe it off if I know it's just going to be that light. So when it comes to the other techniques, we have big brushes and we have the little brush. And I also have that brush with the green or the teal sort of handle. That brush has the bristles worn all the way down. And what I'm doing off camera is dipping that in mineral spirits and then scrubbing it onto the painting. And that removes it. Now you can also see places where I have a paper towel, one of those blue shop towels. And then I'm also dipping that in mineral spirits and wiping the paint off. You guys are doing one practice painting that I'm going to need you to show me, and then you can do one serious painting. And one more thing. When you guys go to set your still lifes up, make sure that it's like multiple objects. One of the things we're not looking for is one object in the middle of the painting, and then that's it. If you go on Instagram, half the paintings on Instagram are a single subject in the middle of the painting. And it can be kind of intense and it looks kind of cool, but composition matters. Level of difficulty matters. These are all things that we can work on. So keep those things in mind.